2023 was a really rough year for the top games on Patreon. Overall growth on the Patreon platform appears to be stagnating compared to 2022. And while there is still growth in the gaming space, only 2 of the top 10 adult games patrons have shown a year-over-year improvement. While that seems like a bad sign for the industry, it is in line with the gaming industry as a whole for 2023. However, when you look at the almost 7,500 adult games creators on Patreon, we're still seeing double-digit growth in the industry compared to 2022. So while these 10 games may not have benefited as much this year from the continued growth of the adult game space, adult games continue to be exploding in popularity. As always, all links can be found for free on my Patreon. This includes titles and any other pertinent information. I'd love to link to all that in the description here, but YouTube does not allow it. I wish things were different, but if I want to remain on YouTube, I have to follow the capricious whims of our alphabet overlords. So here are the top 10 adult games patrons of 2023. At number 10 we have Breeders of the Nephilim. I first covered this open world monster breeding adventure back in 2021. Aside from an overhaul of the UI and some new traits, not much has changed since then. Breeders was actually in a 2-year-long freefall due to limited updates. However, a video by Citizen Talk released at the end of September brought this game near to its 2021 peak and back into the top 10. So what can we reasonably expect in 2024? Yes, development is ongoing and there has been progress, but this remains a one-person project, and updates will likely continue to be infrequent and limited in scope. Breeders of the Nephilim is available for PC on Steam and their Patreon. Wildlife is in the number 9 slot this year and is way down in patrons for 2023. I covered the latest Steam demo earlier this summer, but this game has lost almost 6,000 patrons from its high of over 15,000 patrons in May of 2022. While I am confident that this game will be amazing once the developers finish their move to Unreal 5, I do worry how long this will take. They are literally bleeding patrons and money with each month this is delayed. Wildlife is available for PC on their Patreon, with a demo for PC available on Steam. At number 8 we have Heat. This optional VR furry simulator continues to build steam and has had a decent number of updates and additions over the past year. This includes new rooms, items, poses, and interactions. This is becoming one of the best options for fans of the furry flavor, and is way less expensive than making your own fursuit. Heat is available for PC in both VR and non-VR versions on their Patreon. At number 7 we have Wicked Whims. I find it incredible that a mod for a 9-year-old game continues to be one of the top adult gaming patrons. This mod brings a degree of realism and detail that we will never see from a soulless EA executive. While it won't make someone who dislikes The Sims 4 into a fan, I highly recommend the Wicked Whims mod as a core gameplay experience for any adult gamer. Wicked Whims is available for PC, Linux, and Mac on their Patreon, itch.io, and Nexus mods. At number 6 we have the breakout game of 2023, Whole House. Up over 600% in the last year, this is a free-use parody adventure. You know how in Kingdom Hearts you get to go to all these sorts of worlds and meet different iconic characters? Just think of Whole House as sort of the same thing, just with a wider universe to choose from and a much more specific outcome. Whole House is available for PC, Mac, Linux, and Android on their Patreon with an in-browser version on itch.io. Falling to number 5, we have NLT and the Genesis Order. One of the problems on Patreon when you finish a game is that a developer will tend to lose patrons. By the time Treasure of Nadia finished, there were multiple playable builds for the Genesis Order. However, the Genesis Order released on Steam earlier this year, and we still don't have a playable version of the next game, Symphony of the Serpent. When you also take into account that the Genesis Order appears to be less popular than Treasure of Nadia on Steam, it is easy to explain why NLT has lost over a quarter of their patrons. But I'll talk more about that in the upcoming Steam list. The Genesis Order and Treasure of Nadia are both available for PC, Mac, SteamOS, and Linux on Steam, with a free version as well as an Android version on their Patreon and itch.io. There is also a copy of Treasure of Nadia on GOG. At number 4 we have Operation Lovecraft Fallen Doll. This was the number 2 adult games Patreon for both 2021 and 2022. Unfortunately, we've seen a massive drop this year, and now this optional VR sci-fi monster simulator has less than half of their patrons, compared to their peak of over 24,000 patrons in December of 2021. Will they recover? Given the issues over the past year, I am becoming increasingly concerned about the long-term viability of this project. I would love to be wrong, but even under the best of circumstances, this has always been a very ambitious and risky game to pull off. Operation Lovecraft Fall & All is available for PC on Steam and Patreon in both VR and non-VR versions. At number 3, we have Being a Dick. So I understand that a bill just came out for the first time this year. However, that was after the cutoff of November 30th that I used to calculate each year. That being said, we are still looking at an increasingly delayed release schedule, with Being a Dick Season 2 being much less popular than Season 1. But I'll talk more about that later this month. Being a Dick Seasons 1 and 2 are available for PC, SteamOS, and Linux on Steam and GOG, while Season 3 is available on their Patreon. At number 2, we have Vernate. Growth this year was flat, but that was enough to take the number 2 spot for 2023. Sometimes you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the other guys. Unfortunately, it now appears that the ban by Steam in December of 2022 was a massive blow to the development of this game. We haven't seen a new build since February, and this was the kind of game that could have made millions of dollars on Steam. Think of a Western version of Honey Select, but also with VR. Fortunately, the community continues to be incredibly supportive, so I am more confident about the future of this game than I am of some of the others I've talked about in this video. Vernate is available for PC on their Patreon in both VR and non-VR versions. And at number 1, we have Summertime Saga. When I did this list last year, I talked about my concerns about this harem adventure and made a whole video talking about those concerns more in depth. Since that video, there has been no new content and no new builds. There have been posts, there have been streams, but there has been no content added to the most popular adult games Patreon in over a year. I'm just not sure what else to say about this. Summertime Saga is available for PC, Mac, Linux, and Android on their Patreon. So that's where we are. I think you can see now why so many of these games have not grown over the last year. We're just not seeing a lot of new content. Is it burnout? Is it a fluke? Is it an ominous portent of the future? I'll talk more about this in the Game of the Year video. Until then, let me know what your favorite Patreon of 2023 was. And do you think someone will finally displace Summertime Saga as the number 1 in 2024? Until next time, no shaming, just gaming. Thanks to all this month's support on Patreon. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you all.